Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Module 1. There are a number of task list items that we're going to be covering in Module 1. We've got Content Area H1, which is State Intervention Goals in Observable and Measurable Terms. H2, which is Identify Potential Interventions based on Assessment Results and the Best Available Scientific Evidence. H3, recommend intervention goals and strategies based on such factors as client preference, supporting environments, risks, constraints, and social validity. And H4, when a target behavior is to be decreased, select an acceptable alternative behavior to be established or increased. And as we think about each of these in turn, I'm just going to scroll back up. Look at that H1, state intervention goals in observable and measurable terms. This, in large part, gets at one of the core things that we try to do as behavior analysts. It's one thing to talk about hey, we want to change behavior or we want to see improvement. But the more general we are about those things, the less specific we are about them, the harder it is for us to know if we're actually doing what we said we're going to do. The harder it is for us to really know, did we affect change, right? Did change happen? And so this area H1 really gets into making sure that we've got our goals, but we're defining them in ways that we can see what kind of progress is being made, and we have a way of being able to measure that progress, which really, this is about holding us accountable to make sure that that for the people that we're working with, we say we're delivering a service, we say that we're impacting meaningful change, but are we? This is a way for us to be able to know it when we see it, to be able to measure it, and to be able to report on the progress that we're making. As we move over into H2, identify potential interventions based on assessment results and the best available scientific evidence. So this really gets into how are we arriving at those goals that we're looking to target. And so there are two pieces to this. That first piece, that thinking about assessment results, we can think of that in a couple of different ways. One way is thinking about functional behavior assessment, which is when we're looking at behaviors that we might be targeting for decrease, really trying to figure out why is the person engaging in that behavior, because that's going to lead us towards thinking about interventions that are function specific. So there's that piece, that if we haven't done an assessment and we don't know why someone's engaging in the response they're engaging in, it's really hard to figure out what the appropriate intervention might be. But the other thing is we can think about assessment in terms of measuring where a client is, what their current skill sets are, and based on what that skill set is, what might be the most relevant target to work on, or the set of targets. It's not enough for us just to decide on learning targets based on our own sensibilities or what we think might be worthwhile to do. We've got to really base it on some kind of assessment that tells us, okay, this is the next logical thing to be working on. So that's identifying interventions based on assessment results. The second piece, the best available scientific evidence, is really making sure when we decide on our interventions that we are deciding on interventions that have been peer reviewed, that they're things that we have a reasonable ability to assume that they're going to be effective. Right? They've been used before, data have been reported on them, and we know that they work. Okay, so this content area H2 is about selecting our interventions based on assessment, but also based on what we have a body of research that would suggest that it's going to work. As we move into content area 3, recommend intervention goals and strategies based on such factors as client preference, supporting environments, risks, constraints, and social validity. So this sort of dovetails with H2, whereas H2 we were talking about interventions based on assessment and based on things that have been scientifically validated. Well, we have to take that, and now we have to overlay that on what does our client want? What's important change in the eyes of our client, and what kinds of interventions are acceptable to our client. Additionally, what kind of supports are available in the natural environment, Maybe we have an intervention that's peer reviewed, that is appropriate for the behavior change we're looking to impact, but it's not something that is acceptable to the client, or the environment just won't support its implementation. Right? You might think about something like an attention extinction procedure, but you know that there's no way that everyone in the environment is going to be able to withhold attention. So that might tell you that the environment is really not conducive for that intervention. You might need to keep looking for other interventions, but then also taking into account things like risks, constraints, and social validity, right? So it's really important for us to weigh the environment and the context in which we're going to be implementing our interventions to make a determination about whether an intervention is appropriate for changing behavior. And then finally, H4, when a target behavior is to be decreased, select an acceptable alternative behavior to be established or increased. This is the concept of the fair pair rule, right? That if we just look to decrease behavior, first of all, it's not great from an ethical standpoint, that all we're doing is trying to decrease something, because we're supposed to be generative. We're supposed to be looking at trying to increase and build repertoires that are going to help someone be able to interact more effectively with their environment. But also, if all we're doing is trying to decrease behavior, the effects of our interventions are not going to be great. It's possible we might be able to decrease behavior temporarily or to some degree, but if we haven't taught an acceptable alternative, which really we're talking about a functional alternative here, a way for someone else to get their wants and needs met, all we're going to see is that interfering behavior pop back up, or we're going to see a shift to other interfering behavior. So this content area H4 is really about how do we build repertoires as a critical and necessary component to looking to decrease behavior. Okay? And then just a quick note about something that we're going to see throughout all of these modules. There are a number of readings that are associated with each of these task list items. Some of them are readings in Cooper, Heron, and Heward that you may have already read, but it's an opportunity to refamiliarize yourself with those readings, specifically as they relate to the content area that we're covering here. And then there are also articles that some that are specifically behavior analytic in nature, some that may not be, but that speak in a meaningful way to these different task list items. And then finally, again with all of these modules, you'll see that the articles have a 3-2-1 assessment for you to complete on each article, which is just basically a way for you to weigh in briefly about things that you learned, questions that you might still have, just a way to be able to think back critically on each of the articles that you're reading for the modules. So I hope this intro was helpful, and hope you enjoy Module 1.